Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rachel Zaburl. I'm the manager of Smith McCracken and Wood Funeral Homes. We are so pleased to gather year after year on this wonderful campus of Sussex County Community College for this very special tradition. On behalf of my team at Smith McCracken and Wood Funeral Homes, it has been a privilege to partner with Karen Ann Quinlan Hospice in welcoming each of you to share in this very special event, the 2023 Butterfly Release Celebration. In addition to Smith McCracken and Wood's sponsorship of the event, I would also like to recognize the corporate and community support provided by Lakeland Bank, Regional Cancer Care Associates, and New Baker Funeral Home. For those of you who traveled to join us today, we thank you. And we thank all the families that have continued to support the event via Zoom. Through this technology, we've been able to reach and grow this event to far more families than ever before. A special thank you to our veterans who join us today, who served our country so faithfully. And a special introduction and thank you to Bob McCracken, my predecessor, who was instrumental in starting this event with Karen Ann Quinlan 23 years ago and continues to support their mission. This event, since its inception in 2000, was designed as a gathering, a celebration with your loved ones and the community to remember and honor those who have made a difference in our lives. It makes me very proud to say that since the very first Butterfly Release, we have met that goal. The Butterfly Release Celebration has touched the lives of thousands of families and friends nationwide and even overseas. So many of you have joined us year after year to acknowledge your loved ones who have made an impact on our lives, the loved ones who are still with us today, and those who have passed on before us. The impact and outreach of this event has been successful and far-reaching. Equally important, the good work that's done has been coming from the funds raised by this event. Since 2000, almost over $800,000 have been raised to support the hospice mission, and we've released over 9,000 butterflies into our community. These butterflies not only signify summer and joy, but they're a symbolic reminder of the loved ones that we celebrate today. Before we begin reading the names of our loved ones, I welcome the Garden State Threshold Choir to perform a musical selection for us. These choir members are regular volunteers with Karen Ann Quinlan Home for Hospice, and we thank them for joining us this afternoon. Immediately following the performance, I invite our first reader, Lori Opitz, to begin commemorating the names of our loved ones. I would also like to thank musician and Karen Ann Quinlan Hospice volunteer, Ken Roberts, for joining us to perform as we commemorate the names celebrated in 2023.
We are all just walking each other home. We are all just walking each other home. We are all just walking each other home. We are all just walking
oh so true, isn't it? Denise Zappa, with love, from Kevin J. Lenahan. Karen A. Cole, the princess, with love, from Peter Cole and family. Gina M. DePasquale, with love, from Arthur Lopez. Jane Brace, with love, from friends and loved ones. Thomas Stevens, beloved father, Poppy, and friend, with love, from your daughter Judy and family. Angela Marie Snow, with love, from Nicholas Snow. Sandra Smith Fredericks, with love, from William F. Fredericks and daughter Ruthann F. Takis. Richard Kopachinski, with love, from Marianne Kopachinski. Jackie Smart, with love, from husband Bill Smart. James A. Bohan, with love, from Ronald and Mary Ellen Donner. Davis R. Chant, with love, from your friends and loved ones. Dr. Anthony Puglisi, with love, from the Puglisi family. Pamela Malone, with love, from Friends of Hospice. Joseph Abdi, Rosalie Al Acampora, Mary Ahern, Manolita Algenio, Manuel G. Almeida, Louis Amari, Noreen Amesbury, Andy and Nancy Andrico, Marie Aniano, Christina Leah Apcar, Ty Apollo, Aunt Lola, Lynn Axiotes, Lynn E. Axiotes, Dolson H. Iyer Sr., Donald Allen Babcock, Jesse Douglas Babcock, Keith Babcock, Leola Babcock, Nancy Peggy Babcock, Zoe Marie Babcock, Donald Kenneth Babcock Jr., Donald Kenneth Babcock Sr., Baby Bud, Nancy M. Bandel, Marjorie Banghart, Elwin Barker, Gary Barker, Bathgate family, Carol Bauer, Larry Bauer, Eleanor Bauerband, Joseph Baumgartner, Victoria Baumgartner, Amy Bellew, Emma Bellew, Jean Cadden Bechtold, Kenneth George Bechtold, Adelaide Bedell, Gary Bell, Mr. and Mrs. John Bell, Teresa Bellis, Nancy Bellis, Russell Lewis Bennett, Francis Benoit, Benson family, Raymond A. Bernal, Charlotte A. Berry, Virginia Ginny Berry, William Bill Berry, Clifford Bevelheimer, Gunnar Bigley.
Grace Pagotto, Patricia L. Bissell, Daniel Black, Jerry Blandino, Margaret Bodine, Fred Barringer, James A. Bohan, Dan Volz, Nicholas James Bonagura, Arlene Bonoff, Henry Bono, Joan Bono, Karen Bonte, Brent Borum, Kelly Bowers, Teresa Boylan, Jane Brace, Jane Mom Brace, Jane P. Brace, Ted Brace, Ted Dad Brace, Dorothy Branford, Brian Rick Brang, Helen Brannon, Margaret Rizek, Shirley Brown, Tony and Margie Buca, Aiden Bump, Arthur Burkus, Angie Barrett, Stanley Barrett, Thomas F. Barrett, Edward Barushian, Ethel Barushian, Anthony Bush, Bob Buston, Bill Butler, Virginia Butler, Eleanor Butterworth, Sister Christina Cables, Daniel Kellogg, Bill Calvani, Anthony Canistra, Barbara Capoletti, Frank Capoletti, Ellen Susan Colleen Carbone, Michael Carbonella, Christine L. Carr, Harriet E. Carr, Judith Reese Carr, Wilbur A. Carr, Wilbur E. Carr, Eleanor Casabianca, Lydia Clark Case, Hermelinda N. and Rogelio Roger Castellanos, Ofelia G. Castellanos, John Circilio, Lucille Circilio, Nancy and Jerry Circilio, Joseph J. Cervenek Jr., Helen Chamberlain, Mary A. Chicello, Margaret J. Checker, Anne Constance Chiara, Herbert Chislett, Ronald Christensen, Elizabeth Ciccarelli, Maria S. Cifelli, Claudette Lisa Ciate DeLong, Josephine Chiskowski, Bernard Clark, Wayne Clark, Joan Clements, Alan Cogswell, Rosemary Cogswell, Charles Cogswell Jr., Charles Cogswell Sr., Brian G. Collins,
Elizabeth Collins, James and Pauline Collins, Patrick Collins Jr., Lucy Combs, Mary C. Compton, Robert B. Compton, Kathy Connor, Donna Lee Cook, Clinton Marshall Cook Jr., Danny Cooney, Arthur Cordani, Al Quartz, Ray Quartz, Larry Kornman, Howard Koch, Howard E. Koch, Ted Koch, Annette Costa, R. Patrick Costello, Jeffrey Coughlin, Gertrude Cortis, Lily Mae Cox, Ann L. Crane, Dennis R. Crane, Everett D. Crane, Jeff Cran, Barbara Crawford, Peyton Critchlaw, Father Angelus Croce, Eugene M. Cullen, Raymond J. Cullen Jr., Elizabeth Colmone, Anthony Colmone Jr., Anthony Colmone Sr., James Cummings Jr., Virginia Curran, Keith Cusick, Ann Guerreri Cutler, Doreen Catrone, Dad Ma Rick Ricka, Vera Danks, Barbara Darnell, David W. Davenport, Francis and Alfred David, Maxine David, Patricia David, Chris Davies, Dennis Davis, Diane Davis, Doug Davis, Robert Davis, Phoebe DeBlock, William Paul DeBree, Arthur DeGraff, Ruth DeGraff, Emily Della Vadova, Dorothy Demarest, Leonard DeBlaker, Mike DePue, Meg DePriest, Michael DeRupo, Judy Desiderio, Alex John DeTore, Robert H. Devlin, Peter DeBilio, Kathy Dixon, Vito and Gus DeCidio, Louis DiMarino, Amanda and Louis Diner, Gina M. DePasquale, Ronald Zielinski, Anthony F. Dombrowski, Peter and Barbara Donner, Larry D'Onofrio, Robert Doty, Rita Douglas, Millie Dudas, Conrad Dudzigak,
Deborah Duffy, Tony Divenford, Dr. Ward J. Dunnican, Bobby Durr, Stanley Dutkiss, Rick Zergowski, William Edwards, Robert F. Ehalt, Peg Kalura Eisenberg, Brian Eisenhard, Marcia Elfman, Walter Ellison, Anne Marie English, Eileen Eppel, Alice May Erd, Arlene Esposito, Pops Ralph Estelle, Alberto Estevez, Chuck Everts, Chad Eister, Curly Faber, Betty Fabian, Liam Dean Fagan, George Fallon, Alphonse and Rose Finelli, David Finelli, Jack Farrell, Johnny Farrell, May Farrell, Lexi Fay, George Joseph Featherman, Jackie Federico, Terry Fedorchak, Francis Fies, George Ferre, Mary Ferre, Mary Ferraro, Natalie Ferrero, Diane Ferretti, Major Cesar Ferry, Major Claudice Ferry, Florence M. Ferris, Caitlin C. Fuse, George Figueroa, Edward Filipowski, Mary Filipowski, Dagmar Finkel, Carol Ann Fishburne, Richard James Fitzgerald, Anna and Lou Florentine, Barbara Flowers, Teresa Foley, Mr. and Mrs. L.A. Folansby, for Luna, for Red, Claire Foster, Weeby Franick, Richard H. France, Michael Franzone, Betty Frazier, Henry Woodward Fred and Barbara Cree Fredenberg, Mary L. Frediani, Sandra Smith Fredericks, Raymond Freeborn, Joan Freeman, James L. Fry Sr., Dominic Mickey Frenzy, Joan Marie Frenzy, Daniel Fuller, Joan Gadwell, Pierre R. Gagny, Jean Gallen, Genevieve Galfo, Phil Galfo, Ida and George Galgano, Jim Garcia, Karen M. Gardner.
Elmer Garrison, Maureen Gary, Michael Garvey, Ed Gaskin, Jennifer T. Pinnell Gatsky, Teresa Gavin, David Geisler, Lorraine Genova, Hilda Gerbino, Charlotte and Henry Gerald, John P. Gibbs Jr., Richard Gingerelli, Patricia Glimpse, Jack Goebel, Harvey Gold, Kenneth Gold, Richard Gonzalez, Willard Goodwin, Sean Francis Gorham, Robert J. Gorel, Grandma Daisy, Juliet Graziano, Stephanie Green, Seymour Hank Greenberg, Mr. and Mrs. H. Grimes, Franklin and Dorothy Gulick, Matthew Hakoon, Donna Hammond, Linda Harapuchik, Jean E. Hardin, Eugene M. Hardin Jr., Margaret Hardy, Anna G. Harris, Ernest R. Harris, Ron Harris, Len Hart, Kathy Harnett, Bill Harwood, Janet Hastings, Sharon Havens, Shirley Heater, Albert Heidenmuth, Wilbur and Lois Heinrich, Edward and Elizabeth Heiser, Richard Hendershot, Anita Henderson, Anita E. Henderson, Frank Heininger, Patrick Henry, Edward T. Heslin, Lenore Hinspeter, Robert Holder, Holocaust family, Elizabeth Hoppock, Kenneth Hoppock, Arthur King Hoskin, Jean Hostock, Samurai Houston, Jerry Howley, Sister Mary Alice Howley, Barbara Huber, Margaret Peg Huber, Michelle Hubley, Dave Hughes, Huizinga family, Hulbert family, Doris Hall, Suzanne Halsizer, Victor Halsman, Jimmy Harto, Jim Hutchinson, Mary Louise Hutchinson, Brant J. Hutner, Dorothy Ike, Carolyn M. Imbimbo, Robert John Inglis Jr., Michelle Ippolito, Jackal family,
Michelle D. James, Kyle Jascott, Stephen Jascott, Goldie Gibson, Antonio Johnson, Jean and Dale Johnson, Johnson family, Don and Kate Sue Jock, Hillary M. Ewing Juckett, Sonia Annetta Jurison, Dad Dennis Cardos, Anna Carl, Mom and Dad Cave, Eileen Kelly, Nancy Kemp, Linda Kennedy, Heather Kerwick, Steve Ketchum, Charles Kiger, Eva Kiger, Dolores Kingston, Francis Kinney, Robert Necht, Felicia Colkin, Karen A. Colm, the Princess, Richard Kopasiansky, Reverend Ernest Kosa, Alice Kreis, Andrew Kreis, Russell Kreis, Robert Cromer, George Crone, Krulish family, Laura Krasuski, Eddie Kuhn, Nick Quicken, John Kunzweiler, Charles M. Kupras, Miles Kupras Sr., Willard Billy G. Lacken III, Don LaGreca, Tracy Lance, Henry Landman, Tommy Lehner, Craig W. Lang Sr., Daniel R. Lano, Edna M. Lano, Linda Lyric, Angelo Latero, Mary Latero, John Locks, Grover Chip Lazar, Patrick Leahy, Jack Lagon, Eugene Lemoncelli, Kathy Leonard, Dennis Leonard, Manuel Leonard, Anna Sophie Leonardo, Anthony Leone, Richard W. Letts III, Jay Levine, Charlie Lewis, Marion Lewis, Nancy Lewis, Al Lehman, Artie Lamadou, Edward W. Libby, Minnie C. Licata, Terry Lemons, Nora Lindquist, Donna Little, Horace Rutherford Ford Livingood II, Barbara Long, Cheryl Ann Lopez, Charles Lorber, Elsie Lorber, Kathy Lorenz, Joseph Lorenz, Vincent S. Lasapio, Christopher Lolodakis, loved ones, John Lowy, Marie Lloyd, Mildred Lubowicki, Stephen Lubowicki, Stephen Lucas, Joseph Lupo, McDougal family, Alan Jr. and Alan Sr. McDuff, Bobby Magarino, John Maggio, Lauren Maggio, Paul J. Makers, Annette Maloney, Dolores Mandel, Rosemary and Bob Manigan, Michael Manning, Mr. and Mrs. E. Manzoni, Mary Marchant, Michelle Marciana, Jody Ann Marcinkowski, Nicholas Marcinkowski, Alfred Marcinkowski Sr., Merrill Ann Marquette, Stanley Marquette, Leon and Dolores Marsh, James Jimmy Martin, Rosemary Maserati, Great Uncle John Messina, John Mason, John and Marianne Matthews. Carrie Matos. Fred R. Mall Sr. Brenda Maxson. Anne and Charles P. McAvoy Sr. Cy McCabe. Johanna McCabe. Winifred McCabe. Joe McCafferty. Joan McCann. Carol R. Vianney McCarthy. Deborah McCracken. Shirley and Edward McCracken. Doreen McFadden. Barbara McGeechan. John McGeechan. Gladys Magoon. Stephen Magoon. Marianne McGrath. Melissa McKee. Hank McMahon. Doris McManus. Tony McPartland. Greg Meehan Jr. Irene Mendick. Scott Mendick. Sherry Mendick. Trina Mendick. Judy Menonona. Ron Marone. Paul Joseph Mikowski. Lillian Miller. Thomas Miller. Edna Milligan. Pamela Malone. Rick Malone. Irene Mitchell. Samuel Mitchell. Masood Madirian. John Monahan. Setsu Nana Mondello. Timothy Pop-Pop Mondello Jr. Deirdre Moore.
Donald L. Moore, Clara Marcella, Marilyn Moss, Julius Muller, Maureen Muller, Alfred Murphy, Marion Murphy, Mary Murphy, Dorothy Ann Masilli, Charles A. Masilli Jr., Carmen Nadio Sr., Diane H. Naseby, Nana and Grandpa, Mike Nason, John J. Madison Sr., Mr. and Mrs. L. Nazaro, Danielle K. Nazaro, Brian Eric Neely, Ethel S. Nelson, Terry A. Nelson, John Nervetti, Paul Nimbley, Kathy Nito, Dominic Knoll, Peter G. Nordhausen, Sharon Knowlton, Anna Vajir Nigers, Lorraine Suzanne Nigers, Thomas P. Nykaza Sr., Maddox O'Callahan, Mrs. Connie Odell, all Vietnam veterans of Chapter 1002, Shirley A. Oliver, Frederick E. Oliver Jr., Donald J. and Elizabeth G. Orr, Eric M. Orr, Evelyn Orr, Evelyn M. Orr, Catherine Bootsy Orr, Kenley Alexa Oskowitz, Eric Osman, Jacob Osman, Richard Otts, Leonard Pagano, Thomas Palmer, Donald Palumbo, Rose Palumbo, Paul Pappas, Kathleen Pashley, Frank Pastor, Judy Pastor, Joe and Lillian Patricia, Doris Peterson, Graham Viola Peer, Gramp Burton Peer, Ralphie Palias, Shelley Palias, Kevin Penny, John Jack Penrose, Lori Lee Penrose, Matthew Penrose, Nancy Penrose, Eli Percosi, J. Thomas Perrine, Paul File, Phil Phelan, Ann Phillips, Walter Philpani, Joey Pfister, Lou and Ray Pigasi, Ray and Betty Lou Pigasi, Mary Pekarsky, Rosie Pinkella, Valerie Petrowski, Ruth H.S. Plummer, Rosemarie Podalkovitz, Carmen Palazzi, Patricia Palazzo,
Joe Coley, Betty Porter, Eleanor Post, Earl M. Post Jr., John A. Post Sr., Judy Davies Postus, Ruth E. Powell, Angel Prescher, Francis Preston, Frank J. Prizzetti, Frank Prizzetti, Elsie Pritchard, Kate Pritchard, Floyd Theodore Proctor, Arlene Loic Prosciutto, Ethan Pruden, Dr. Anthony Puglisi, Tony Puglisi, John Pulver, Richard L. Humphrey, Puzia family, Stanley and Dorothy Pyatt, Stephen and Mary Quain, James Quinlan, Joseph T. Quinlan, Karen Ann Quinlan, Brian E. Quinn, Marlon Raber, Patricia Raber, Annie Rafalski, Antoinette Rando, Louis E. Reed Sr., Renato Raboa, Louis E. Reed Sr., Patricia S. Nee Prudenti Regic, Reichert family, James Reinecht, Dave Reiter, Al Reynolds, Claire Richter, Louis Richter, Katie Riker, John Rinaldi, David Ritter, Brian W. Roche, Isabel Ortiz Rodriguez, David Rogers, Suzanne Rode, Susan M. Rode, Romano family members, Lillian Rome, Virgil Rome Sr., Ronetko family, Frederica Rosano, Nathan and Adele Rosen, Jesse Rothenberg, Paul Rounseville, Roger Rubinetti, Patricia Ruck, Marion Runyon, Donna Ryan, John Ryan, Patrick and Mary Ryan, Philip and Nora Ryan, Reverend Joseph Ryan, Thomas Ryan, Dolores J. Rydell, Paul Sadlon, Eric H. Sandlin, Jeffrey Hardin Sankus, Mary Hardin Sankus, Marcia Salzar Elfman, Marion Satterwhite, James Saxon, Joe Scala, Pat Shad, Ted Schomburg, John Shedding.
Earl W. Schick Jr., Betty Schultz, Isabella Schimpf, cousin of Debbie Scholmer, John Schmidt, great-grandmother Marge Schneider, Mary Schuckenberger, Rosemarie and Harold Schuler, Scrow family, Fran Seagraves, Cindy Seachrist, Diane Seeger, Geraldine Seif, Eleanor Schaefer, Farmer John Schauger, Michelle Shaw, Elizabeth Ann Shearman, Eleanor Sheeran, John and Mary Chapon, Dorothy R. Sidman, Les and Carl Sidman, Mary M. May Sill, Ronald J. Slate, Jackie Smart, Margaret Smirak, Brian Smith, Gladys May Smoko, Jeffrey Shamola, Igor Israel Smushkin, Angela Marie Snow, Joanne Soltis Bell, Francis and James Spillman, Chris Squashik, Marianne Squashik, Dick Statz, Richard Statz, Damiano Sabio, Evelyn Effie Stackhouse, Teresa Terry Stahl, Wilma Sinkowitz, Judith Starger, Carol Jean Stefaro, Thomas Stevens, Janice Stevens, Mary Ellen Ramillo Stevens, Robert Stevens, Donovan Stiles, Dorothy Stiles, Janine Stockmall, John and Janine Stockmall, Carol P. Stobling, Theodore Stone, Alfred Stout Sr., Sally F. Stover, Marguerite Strachan, Sylvia Strawway, Catherine Streeter, Daniel Streeter, Thomas Streeter, Grace Marie Strobel, Robert Joseph Strobel, John Strugnowski, Luke Stroud, Theodore Studney, Jackie Studnicki, James Michael Sullivan, James Sullivan, John Sullivan, Mary Belmont Sullivan, Nicole Cerise, Geraldine Bender Cipher, James W. Cipher, Armand Talamanco, Thomas William Talbot, Dennis F. Tangway Sr., Anthony Tapp, Vincent C. Tarazona, Doug Tartaglia,
Patricia Taturka, Nancy Tettenbaum, Matthew Thomas, Bill Titeman, Robert J. Tote, Gerd Trokel, Virginia Troll, Patricia Troxel, Hilda Trzynski, Tuin family, Marion and Jerry Turner, Uncle Gil,
Irene Van Dyke, Bill Varcatapane, Robert Angelo Varisco, mother of D.C. Veal, Donald Veely.
Nicholas Veenstra, Harry Vega, Dennis Victoria, Bert Villano, Dottie Villano, Louis and Dorothy Villano, Lorraine Verga, Doug Vivian, Frank and Alice Von Atzingen, John Van Atzingen, Claire Walsh, James Walsh, Mr. and Mrs. Watson, Peggy Weaver, Joel Wexler, William Wexler, Milton Wexler, Albert Weenstra, Howard Butch Weinrich, Nancy Whidden, John Whitehead, George Whiteneck, Patricia Whiteneck, Ann Weidenman, Ted Weidenman, Ogle Weitzel, Jenny Wiggins, Joanne Wiggins, Helen Williams, Patricia Willis, Michael Joseph Wills, George W. Wilson, Jill Wilson, Eleanor H. Wint, Catherine Winkleman, Erwin Wolfson, Craig P. Wood, Joan M. Wood, Maureen L. Wood, Robert P. Wood, Helen Clark Woodhull, Christopher Wright, Gerald Wright, Gladys E. Wright, Janina Wychelek, Patrick Joseph Wiley, Robert George Yingst, Ariuzek McCormick, Anthony Zaccaro, Zaleski family, Denise Zappa, Doris Zerbel, Randolph Zebrel, Nella and Frank Zett, Herda Zikraft, Zyrold family, Joe Zeitone, Lois Zeitone, Maria Zoppi. Jeanette Clem, Willard Clem, Tonhild Shamstra, Barry Zemansky, Jack Zemansky, Blake Zemansky, John J. Zemansky family, John E. Smolko, Cindy Smolko, David J. Charnews, Ted Karski, Jackie Smart, Willard and Jeanette Clem, David Clem, Bobby Jaretsky, Lori Nestor Lucas, Simon Fryu, Richard Smolko, Christopher Kessler, Frank Schultz, and Frank Santillo.
Regina Curran, Judy Sherlock, Diane Crum.
And now I'd like to introduce the Garden State Threshold Choir.
Sorrow, I wish you grace in this moment. I wish you peace in this moment. I wish you love in this moment. I wish you freedom. I wish you grace in this moment. I wish you peace in this moment. I wish you love in this moment. I wish you freedom. I wish you grace in this moment. I wish you peace in this moment. I wish you love in this moment. I wish you freedom.
Thank you, choir members, and thank you, Ken, for sharing your time and talent. And thank you to all of our guest readers. It is my hope that a wave of beautiful memories rushed over you as you listened to your loved one's name today. Gail Lumet Buckley says, "Family faces are like magic mirrors. Looking at people that belong to us, we see our pasts, our presents, and our futures." It has been our privilege and honor to remember and celebrate the names and lives of your loved ones, and we thank you. In working with Karen Ann Quinlan Hospice over 43 years, Smith McCracken and Wood Funeral Homes have had the opportunity to collaborate with many members of this organization. At this time, I would like to thank their professional team for providing an unsurpassed level of care and support to so many patients and families during their time of need. In addition to helping families and loved ones stay comfortably at home, the organization continues to support their patients and families at the Karen Ann Quinlan Home for Hospice, a beautiful 10-room home-like hospice care facility in Freedom Township. Another valuable resource is the Joseph T. Quinlan Bereavement Center, located on Plains Road in Augusta. The Bereavement Center's professional team welcomes all area residents in need of support. They offer individual and support group settings in all 3 counties, as well as specialized memorials and art bereavement programs, all designed to assist anyone working through the loss of a loved one. At this time, I'd like to ask Lori Opitz, our Director of Bereavement at the Joseph T. Quinlan Bereavement Center, to share her reflections on the Butterfly Release celebration.
Thank you. I love this event for several different reasons. And one of them is because it is unique from our other events that we run throughout the year in which names are read. We do Lights of Life in December in 3 counties, and we do a memorial service. And there's reading of names of our loved ones who have gone before us. And it's beautiful and honoring and meaningful, and it helps us deal with our feelings. And then we have this event, which, again, we have the reading of the names. But not all of the names are for those who have already left. For this event, we can include names of people who we are happy to still have among us. Every year, I put my mom's name in. She's still among the living. Little forgetful, but still among the living. And I put her name in to say, I'm glad you're still here with us. And when she does leave, I will continue to include her name to say, we honor and remember you for all that you gave and all that you lived. So that makes this event very different from the other ones. And so some of the names we have read today are people who are still with us. And it's good to say, glad you're still here. Hope you can stay a while. And once they have left, to remember through ritual, like the lighting of a candle or the reading of a name, to say you meant something, you impacted our lives, you won't be forgotten. Our relationship turns to one of memory when they leave, and those memories become our treasures. The other thing I love about this event, of course, is the butterflies. And the butterflies represent so many different things to us. It could just be a beautiful sign of nature, a sign of spirit visiting us and hanging around, or a sign of everlasting life, or one of the butterfly transformation. And in grief, we use an analogy of the transformation of the butterfly to help us understand our grief process. We were caterpillars having our life, munching along, doing what caterpillars do, and all of a sudden, we are thrown into this dark, lonely state, like the chrysalis for the butterfly, the cocoon state. And it's dark and lonely, and it seems like we'll never emerge because that loved one has left us, and we don't know how we're going to muster along without them. And it looks like there's nothing really going on in that cocoon. But there is. We know that there is. There's great transformation happening. There's work happening. Just like there's work happening with us when we mourn, when we miss those people that we love. We are doing a lot of work. Emotional work, spiritual work, mental work. Everything is different. We all know this to be true. And people may look at us and say, you're looking good. But we know on the inside, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of transformation happening. And we do change. We prioritize at a higher level. We don't sweat the small stuff. We value the relationships with the people that are here on a deeper level. We develop coping skills and better styles of coping, maybe new supports, but there's a lot of change and growth happening for the cocoon and for us. And the most beautiful is when we emerge. When the butterfly emerges, totally transformed and beautiful, to live out the rest of its days, and for us to emerge, transformed, healing, better. As we journey on, muster up that emotional energy that it takes to continue on and develop a life for ourselves that brings us meaning and pleasure. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for coming out today to share the names of your loved ones with us. My name is Mary Ellen. I am the chair of the board of the Karen Ann Quinlan Memorial Foundation. The McCracken family has long been a friend of the Karen Quinlan Hospice. For 4 decades, through Ed and Shirley McCracken, through Smith McCracken Funeral Home, and currently through Bob McCracken, their son, who's a very active member of the Karen Quinlan Memorial Foundation. As always, We are extremely grateful for their support, which enables us to not only provide the best quality care possible, but to care for those unable to afford hospice and bereavement services. At this time, in appreciation for the many years of sponsorship of this event, I would like to present Rachel Zerval, Director of Smith McCracken Funeral Home, with a Lennox Butterfly that recognizes the 23rd year of sponsorship of the Butterfly Release Celebration.
Thank you so much for the recognition. We're truly proud and honored to get the opportunity to work with Karen Ann Quinlan Hospice in supporting our community. But most important is to recognize that none of this would be possible without all of you, the supporters of the hospice programs and their missions, and honoring your loved ones living and predeceased. So thank you all for your support as well. I would now like to invite Joanne Windsor up, chaplain of Karen Ann Quinlan Hospice, to share some closing thoughts.
Blessed and present Creator, as we have remembered and celebrated the family and friends who have left their earthly life, we are reminded that just as the butterfly began in cocoons, patiently awaiting freedom from their bonds, those we love and had to say goodbye to released the chains that held them captive. They too are free. The loving devotion and care given them was a gift offered from the heart. The beautiful memories they left are their gift in return. Continue to bless us as we follow this journey called life. In your holy name, send us out in peace and love. Shalom and amen.
George Eliot said, "What greater thing is there for human souls than to feel that they are joined for life, to be with each other in silent, unspeakable memories." It has been our pleasure to gather here with you year after year for this thoughtful afternoon that honors, remembers, and celebrates the loved ones that have embraced each of our lives. At this time, we'll be taking a short intermission to move to the College Green for the release of the butterflies. Please stay in your seats and allow our volunteers to get out to their spots with the butterfly cages before you start to gather around them. During this transition, the Garden State Threshold Choir will perform a final selection. Please be cautious as the butterflies land as they're acclimating to their new surroundings. As we move forward this afternoon, I thank each of you once again for sharing in this day with us. In just a few moments, you can follow the volunteers out to the green. Thank you.